Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our Season 3 finale review. We have made it to the end of the season where somehow, some way, a lot of this mess gets tangled up and just untied. I don't know exactly how they do this year after year, but here we are.
I was convinced that Theo had to be dead in the last episode. That pool of blood was large. Here we are. Theo survived. Also, Carrie and Sherry survived. Love, not so
No.
much. Obviously, there's lots of spoilers ahead, including the one that I just gave you guys. So hit that subscribe button if you don't mind spoilers. We're going to be talking all about the season finale of You.
Also, we have Succession coming. We are doing that show every single week. That is a whole lot of fun. We
Yep.
suggest you check that out and check out our Instagram at Matt and Jess TV. All right, and now we dive into all of the chaos that is the U finale.
All right, let's talk about Love. It felt very early on that Love was probably not going to make it out of this season alive. As the season was going on, it felt like there wasn't any more story to tell about Love and Joe. Kind of when it was rounding about episode 4 or 5 and it was starting to get around there, it felt like their story was over. And now it is very over. Love is dead. Joe has killed her, and he's also made it so that he is also dead. He is presumed dead. He cut off his toes, left them in the house. There was enough DNA that even though his body wasn't found, there's enough that people feel that he is done. And now he is Nick.
I gotta say, I think a lot of us saw, a major character like Love dying. I think that part of it's fairly predictable. I did not see Joe cutting off his own toes and then leaving that be like, number one, gross. Number two, that does at least resolve one of the big questions that I had, and how in the world is Joe at this point now that he's at least
Yeah.
well known around this? He's Nick now, so now we have the story, I guess, of Nick in season 4.
Yeah, I mean this made a lot of sense. Joe has such a huge body trail behind him at this point that it really makes sense that he needs to be somebody else now. Like going into season 4, Joe needs to kind of be done here, and he has cut off pretty much every tie he has at this point. We even saw in the flashbacks, which we haven't been the biggest fan of, but that he got some answers from his mom of why he was left at the orphanage, where she kind of said sometimes you have to do what you think is right for your kid. And he ends up deciding to not only end Love's life,
Yeah.
but then leave Henry with Dante and Lansing, where he thought that Henry would have a much better life, especially with Love's dying words basically saying, "You are never going to be able to be a good dad to Henry. He is always going to turn out messed up because he's being raised by you." He makes a really hard decision
Yeah.
to give Henry to them to hopefully have a better life than Joe is going to be able to give.
Can I say that I love Dante? I Dante has
Yeah.
we've not given Dante enough love throughout the UC. I find that he's just got a charm about him, and I think he will be him and Lansing. They will be good parents to Henry. They will make sure that Henry is okay. He's not entering the system in the same way that Joe did. So in that way, the cycle is broken.
Yeah, and I know that the show probably didn't want Joe running around the world looking for Marianne with a kid,
No.
because once you bring a kid into the show, it changes the dynamics a lot. I kind of was wondering how they were going to tie up Henry, but here we are.
Here's the biggest beef I have about Nick seemingly being in Paris. can Finn Badgley not like grow a beard or like cut his hair or something? Like people are gonna know what Joe Goldberg looks like, I would assume, after all of this. Like, can't you at least try to not look like your old self?
I'm assuming that he feels confident that he can be somewhere else completely. Nobody's looking for him. Everybody thinks he's dead. So, sure, he can go there and look exactly the same.
If this is the case in season 4, there better be somebody who's like speaking French to him and sort of saying, "You look just like Joe Goldberg, who I see in the papers. I want to know your comeback to this, Nick."
Yeah, so he's out there looking for Marianne. He's claiming at the end of this season that he is going to do everything to find her. But at this point, it feels like she does not want to be found. She took Love's heating very much to heart, and she took her kid and she bounced. Like, no forwarding address, no phone number, no nothing. Love was very clear that Joe had something to do with Ryan's death, and it seems that Miriam really believed her.
Yeah, and even if she didn't, this is still the right move to make, because this is no matter what Love said or if it was true or not true, you know that Joe is associated with all sorts of mess. And you also know at this point, obviously, that he's dead as well. But still, you want to give your kid the best opportunity to succeed. And the best opportunity to succeed is to just run as far away as possible from this town, from all the dead people, from just all of the carnage. Like, this town got ravaged over this season.
There's a lot that I liked about this finale.
Yeah.
They did find a way to wrap things up really well. They even made me like Sherry and Carrie. I know. I'm not sorry. They really had them in that cage, really breaking down some of the like just surface stuff between them where they really were just them. And that was the moment that I felt a connection to them. I was really rooting for them to get out of that cage, and they did. Sure, they went off to be pretty shallow and hollow again, doing TED Talks in the cage.
Sure.
But that moment was, I kind of wish that they had that moment a little bit earlier, like maybe episode 8 even, something like that, where I felt for them more in the cage, but it was well done.
This is the thing. I am happy that Sherry and Carrie did not die. Like, I will always, they will always drive me crazy, but I am happy as well that they lived, because I think if everybody just died at the end of this, it would be kind of just like, wah, wah. So I like that they lived. I mean, we brought up Theo earlier, and you know, I just still don't know how he survived, and like that part of it's a little bit hard to buy into.
Even when he was moaning, and then we had Joe Pull open the bag, and he was talking mostly coherently, I just didn't believe it. Good for him for being able to make it out alive and having a better relationship with Matthew, who we will also get into.
Oh boy.
However, it was nice to see that happen, but at the same time, I just don't believe that Theo would have made it out of that alive. Like, that amount of blood and being sort of unconscious for that amount of time, and then he's just talking like a little bit tired.
Yeah.
No. That didn't make any sense.
No, it really. Listen, there are certain things that you did in this finale that were just supportive. We just have to be like, okay, we accept that. We'll just continue to move forward here. But no, that Theo surviving was a question mark. And okay, you mentioned Matthew, so I think it's time we pose this question.
Okay.
Have we ever seen a well-known actor be wasted in a season-long role more than Scott Speedman on you this season?
He really was. They needed to put more time into him and less time into Sherry and Carrie. This Matthew character, he really could have been something. Like, he was dark, he was mysterious, he was obsessed. He had every bit of surveillance at his fingertips. There was a lot that I think was missed with this character. He could have been something real interesting, a really bigger threat. it was wrapped up so quick.
Yeah.
With all the stuff that was going on, it was a bit of a disappointment.
It was such a disappointment. I mean, good on you for being a better father, I guess, after the fact and taking care of Theo. It's like, that's great, but we didn't have enough of an emotional journey with you to really sit here and be like, Matthew, look at you coming around and being a good dad. It's just like, okay, whatever. What else is there?
Okay, so the other thing that I had a bit of trouble with, a lot of trouble with here. I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but the thing that I found completely unbelievable, but I guess they had to put it together, was having Joe be so much smarter than Love that he picked up that what she was planting in her garden put him on this path where he was like, okay, she's planting this certain thing. That means that she's planning to paralyze me. Okay, then I got to make sure that I take this adrenaline right before I touch this knife that I don't know is dose, but who knows? I feel like it's coming up. It was just too bam, 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 bam. Like Joe just knew everything. Like he could read her mind and knew exactly when everything was going to happen. I didn't believe it. It needed, I think, more time to breathe, or even just a little bit more in maybe the episode before, or even a couple of episodes to make Joe catch on to that. I mean, I have a garden. I don't expect that everybody's in it looking at every single thing that's there and then plotting out everything that's going to happen. It was unbelievable. I'm sorry.
I have never sat there and looked at anything in the garden and been like, okay, I'm going to figure out this from it. I'm going to figure out that from it. I'm going to figure out the other from it.
You're not going and checking out John Lemon?
Yeah, no, John.
I have a lemon tree out there that now maybe Matt is going to go take a look at and be like, John Lemon, what is going on with you? Is there something I need to take adrenaline before I'm going to be served some chicken? Like, no, it was just too unbelievable. Like, I know that Joe is smart and he picks up on stuff, but no.
I could have bought a certain extent of it. I could have bought that he picked up on maybe a couple of different things, but the idea specifically that it's this one knife, that it's this one thing that he needs to take it beforehand, and just like the specific, like just pinning it down so that he can predict every minute detail, that's where it gets especially unbelievable to me. I could have bought a couple of things. I could have bought that he had at least checked up on the garden. Like, you give me one or two of them, and I think I probably would have been okay with it. But in addition to it somehow looking like Joe is like some sort of really incredible genius with mind reading powers, this was also very much of you being like, look how smart we are that we like dropped these little things in these past couple of episodes, and now we're going to show them to you like they mattered in some sort of much greater sense. And sometimes this is like the movie The Prestige. Sometimes things can pull this off and we look back at it and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm not fully doing that here. I'm just kind of like, okay, really?
No, there wasn't enough information given to us that we would be able to figure out exactly what Joe figured out. Like, we know that Carrie had this bag full of drugs, but him looking at the adrenaline and all this other stuff, I was like, okay, maybe he's just looking through whatever. Love being in the garden, there was nothing there. There was just nothing there for the audience to really know that, unless we stopped it and zoomed in on the flowers that she was planting. How do we know this? Now we got to talk also about the Matthew coming over there and looking for Theo and leaving him all tied up. Again, it was sort of a blink once if you need help situation. I was like, okay, I get a little bit of this.
Yeah.
I don't think this was needed at all. This felt a lot more like we have Scott Speedman and we need to use him, because he could have figured out that Theo was at the hospital. The hospital would have called him at some point and said, come get him.
That's one of the weirdest logical leaps in this entire finale, is that somehow did not happen at any point while all the chaos was going on.
No, instead you have Joe looking at his phone and Matthew somehow understanding to face open it and be like, oh, the hospital. No. I know that it sounds like I'm being really critical of this finale because I am a little bit. There was a lot that I really did like about this finale. A lot.
Yeah, I thought the performances were really, really great. I mean, that those last scenes with Joe and Love were just so soul crushing.
Yeah, they were really, really well acted. I felt in those scenes. The scene with Marianne and Love,
Yeah.
that was really, really well played, very well acted. It was, and I liked the whole setup afterwards that Joe really put a lot of thought into how am I going to make it look like Love is responsible for Gil, Natalie, the box with all the stuff in it and the teeth. And like he's really kept everything all this time. And it all worked out really well with the setup, him baking the pie, putting his toe in it. Like it came together really well afterwards.
Yeah, I thought the execution of that was really good, and I think it's all sort of it's interesting looking back at it now because you like to sort of think, okay, after a season of a show, what did these characters learn? Like, how did they evolve? And I mean, I guess we could say that Joe learned that he's never gonna be happy with somebody who sees like the full parts of himself because that's not who he wants to be. But even in the closing minutes of this finale, you still get the sense, though, that he is pursuing this person who he thinks can make him better, who he thinks will, on some level, save him and will acknowledge the true, pure version of him. And in that sense, it's like, okay, Joe, have you really learned that much at all?
The only thing that I think Joe has really learned, well, two things. I think that Joe, when he recognized that he had mommy issues and rescuing people issues, I think that that is something that he really truly looked at in himself. And then he was like, and I'm okay with it. So I think he did learn that. Him deciding to give Henry over to Dante and Lansing, I think was something else that he really learned about himself, to be somewhat selfless for other people, at least for his son, that he knew that he was not going to be able to do a good job raising his son, and he really felt that he could be damaging towards his kid, that he decided that it was better for him to step back. And that was an act of love that I think not a lot of people are capable of doing something like that. And especially for someone like Joe, who is very obsessive and thinks that he's this great guy, that he could realize that maybe he's not the right person to be raising his son, is something that I actually didn't think Joe had in him.
It's true. He did show evolution to some degree, and I think now, how does he pay that forward? Like, does that continue? Do we continue to see these new sides of him? We're gonna probably have to wait a long time, everyone.
It's hard to know. I mean, he's in Paris looking for Marianne, so he's learned some stuff, and but other stuff he has not learned anything when it comes to his obsessions. And I understand this to some degree, because he did have to sit there and witness what was going on with that conversation with Love and Marianne.
Yeah. He's desperate to be like, I'm not that guy. He's willing to go wherever she is to figure that out. And that's a part of season 4 that will be fun, is there's no guarantee it's going to even be in Paris. It could be anywhere else. It could be wherever he gets a tip on her. But now we close the door on season 3. What a roller coaster. We've been here every day talking all about it. So thank you guys who have hung out with us, chatted with us in the comments.
Overall, I really enjoyed this season. There was a couple of stale episodes that kind of felt like filler, but overall, there was a lot of really good surprises in this, things that I didn't expect. A couple things that I did expect. I didn't think that Love was going to make it out alive. I was kind of hoping they do an old switcheroo on me and Joe wouldn't make it out alive, and maybe we'd be going into the next season with Love, because we know a lot more about her now and that she's capable of the same things. We know everything that sort of happened with her other husband, and but we didn't end up getting there. What did you think overall?
Overall, I enjoyed this season a good bit. I think there were a lot of memorable episodes. I would still say, though, that I think season one and season two I enjoyed more overall because I think they had a more sort of consistent arc. Like, it's going to be hard to top season one in my mind just because that is sort of where everything started. And there was a point in time where I kind of thought after season one there didn't even need to be any more of the show, but they continued it. There's not one episode that sticks out in my mind the same way like a couple of them do in season two, like,
Yeah.
the hangover episode, as I kind of call it. But I did enjoy this season. A couple of tricky spots. We never need to talk about the party with our old pals here, Carrie and Sherry, ever again.
No, that door is closed.
Well, what did you guys think? Did you guys enjoy season three, the finale? Are you surprised at all by any parts of the ending? Where do you think season four is going to go? Share in the comments, hit that like button. Thank you so much, and we'll see you here next time.